First of all, I apologize for the drama on Friday and for the minor drama on jury selection when I became disoriented. Did recover from that one, but Friday was a disaster and I apologize for it. What I'm asking you to consider, first of all, what if Jose wasn't home that day? Would he be in that chair right now? I think it's an interesting point. Mercedes is dead. Precious Mercedes Lasoya, 5-year-old child, is dead. How did she die? The state's not worried about that. They're just worried about what happened before she died. There are plenty of charges. I won't go into all of them. I don't want to drive you crazy. You've been here long enough. I am most deeply influenced by Jordan. She had a front row seat to everything that happened. Maybe she was asleep sometimes. Basically, she was there. I don't believe she had an opportunity to be coached. She gave her statement to a social worker, apparently the day after her sister was found dead. And the testimony she gave was that her mother was jamming food into her sister's mouth. Her sister was spitting it out. She kept jamming it in. And ultimately, she shoved a spoon down Mercedes' throat. At that point, Mercedes fell on the floor, according to Jordan, and she had no more breath. Jordan said that her mom tried to put breath in Mercedes, but it didn't work. I believe she said it happened twice, but it didn't work. Mercedes had no more breath. My recollection is that Jordan then said, my mom took me and Mercedes, and we went to her boyfriend's apartment somewhere in the complex. Mercedes had an opportunity to say, oh, Jose brought her back to life when we got to his place. She never said that. As far as she was concerned, her sister was dead when they left Jeanette's apartment. And they were in Jeanette's apartment. They weren't in Jose's apartment. Who is Jeanette? You never saw her. State never brought her. But she was there. She had been the place where Katrina had stayed with her children for 2 days before her death. Katrina told you that. Now, I'm telling you things that I saw, my perceptions, my beliefs. You are not required to listen to me. I'm required to tell you what I think and to hope you'll go the direction that I'm trying to put you in. But you don't have to. You are the final determiner of what is truthful and what you've just seen for the past week. What did CPS, Child Protective Services, do to protect Mercedes? His name is not called Jose Protective Services. The name of the agency is Child Protective Services. Did you hear anything that indicated that they protected Mercedes? Anything at all? I would suggest to you that you didn't. You heard a very fine man, Mr. Adame, report on what he saw as an investigator, but you didn't hear any testimony about, well, we're CPS and we did this or that. To my knowledge, you didn't see it. Again, it's your information, it's your beliefs that count, not what any lawyer tells you. And then there's the police. We had, I believe, 3 neighbors that testified that they called the police because they heard a child crying in agony, not just moaning and groaning because she didn't have a toy, but crying in pain. They heard hits, they heard smacks. They called the police. With the witness Mo, as I recall, they didn't show up. With the other witness, the couple, the woman said they did come to the upstairs apartment, but they didn't go inside, to the best of her knowledge. They just stayed outside. I didn't hear any follow-up. It's up to you. Did you hear any follow-up by SAPD? Now, I'm not telling you that that cop should have broken in the door. In the present climate, he'd probably have been arrested if he had broken in the door. But could have followed up with somebody from his department the next day looking into, was the child all right? You didn't hear any evidence whatsoever that anybody checked up on Mercedes. There was another time that that neighbor called, as I recall, and she said that there was no response at all. In both cases, that neighbor was not contacted apparently by anybody to follow up on the story about whether the child was safe or not. Ultimately, that's really what we're talking about in this whole case. Who protected the child? The state has submitted Katrina Mendoza, the co-defendant, as the witness against Jose. Technically, there, in my opinion, only 3 people, that would have the information on what actually happened: Katrina, Jose, and Jordan. The judge has instructed you cannot rely completely on the testimony or evidence produced by the accomplice. And I ask you, what was produced, except what Jordan said, other than by the accomplice? I would say everything. Everything came in from her. Was she believable? That's your decision, not mine. She called her daughter a liar. She said Jordan didn't really see her shoving food down the child's mouth. Jordan didn't really see her put a spoon in her mouth. Jordan didn't really see her fall to the floor. And Jordan didn't really see her stop breathing. Jordan never used the word stop breathing. Again, what I'm saying to you is what I recall. I'm not trying to mislead you. Your statements, your thoughts and remembrance may be different than mine. It's you that count. Can't say that enough. She also said that reports from police and whatnot were wrong. An interesting thing I thought about Katrina's testimony was her memory that sometimes was crystal clear, and other times she couldn't remember anything. She only had 2 kids. She couldn't remember what schools they went to. She couldn't remember what medicines they got. She couldn't really recognize asthma and that's a serious disease in her child. She said, as I recall, that it wasn't very serious asthma. Who do you believe, Jordan or her mother? We have the detectives, Size and Detective Lawrence Size and Detective Cahill, who gave an extremely expert analysis of what they had seen. They were horrified, understandably. But they were, I believe, flawless in what they did in terms of investigation. Gustavo Cervantes was the charge nurse, as I remember him to be. He didn't see Katrina run into the hospital carrying Mercedes saying, "Help my baby," but he heard it. According to the charge nurse, she had no life in her. She was cold. She had no signs of life. They tried to resuscitate her. I think it was 3 times that they had to do it under the Glasgow rules or something, but they couldn't resuscitate her. They put an instrument in her knee and various other places to try to get blood and put IVs in, but they weren't successful. At that point, we have Katrina, I believe, feigning an emotional situation. Detective Cahill didn't believe her at all. He thought she was faking emotion at the time. And this was right away. This wasn't days later. It was right away. If you're carrying your child into an ER, you have to fake it. If she's not breathing, again, your call. I suggest to you that if you believe, and I don't know what you're going to believe, so I'm covering different angles of this, but if you believe that Mercedes was alive when Jose saw her and that he gave her resuscitation, and I believe he said held her over his shoulder like a baby, patting her, trying to clear her lungs. If you believe that, and if you believe he acted carefully and reasonably, that's a defense. It's a defense by the statute. It's not a defense by Teresa. It's a defense by the statute.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to a misstatement of the law.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the law will be given to you in the charge of the court. You may continue. And 5 minutes, counsel.
Thank you. When you look at your charge, it will explain it probably in better language than I just used because I didn't have it memorized. But if you feel that that part really did happen and that she didn't come there dead, then you find him not guilty. Katrina is going to get a benefit out of her testimony. She could get probation, which is the other term for deferred adjudication. The most she can get in jail, the most under her plea agreement, is 45 years. She can get anywhere up to 45 years. Over 5, it has to be minimum 5, but anywhere up to 45 years. What if she did such a good job and you convict Jose of all this stuff? What if she gets 10? What if she gets probation?
Object to relevance, Your Honor.
All right, that'll be overruled. Ladies and gentlemen, this is closing arguments. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. My final words to you. Nobody protected that child, that beautiful little child. She was alive. Nobody vindicated her death. It's up to you to do that.